This is The Last Word, and I'm Maria Shakil. Once again, OTT platforms are facing intense scrutiny. Concerns are mounting over the kind of explicit and obscene content freely available online, with allegations even suggesting that child pornography is being circulated. The matter has reached the Supreme Court, and hearing a batch of petitions that call for tighter regulation on online content, the top court has sought a response from leading OTT platforms including Netflix, Amazon Prime and Alt Balaji. The top court has clearly indicated that the centre must step in to regulate obscene content being streamed to millions of users across the country. In response, the central government has informed the court that additional regulations for OTT platforms are under serious consideration. This has ignited a nationwide debate. Is it time for censorship on OTT platforms? Should the OTT platforms be held accountable with self-regulation? Can a balance be struck between creative freedom and responsible content dissemination? Let me try and get answers to all the questions that I've raised just few seconds back. We have N.S. Napinai, senior advocate, someone who has been very vociferous in this domain. We also have Girish Wankade, film trade expert. Sanjana Galrani is an actor. Vivian Sharan is a public policy expert. We also have Karan, who is an OTT industry expert. I'm going to begin with you, Ms. Napinai. I, for one, believe that the OTT platforms should be held accountable by they themselves trying to regulate their content rather than some kind of censorship being brought in by government through law. With this kind of judgment, do you think the ball will go into the court of the OTT platforms, or is the government now going to take a leap here?
Maria, right now I don't think there would be any cause for that much concern. If you look at the way things have been taken forward in India too, the first step that the government took through the intermediary guidelines was a self-regulatory mechanism. Now, when we talk about the R word, I really want to put it out there that we have to first understand that it's not a bad word. It's not meant to restrict or restrain. It's just to regulate. So we need to ensure that this regulation remains within the permissible limits and does not exceed that remit. Now, how does it remain within that permissible remit? And more importantly, how do platforms know what is the permissible remit? Now, that's where regulations really play a critical role in creating or ensuring transparency for platforms to know what is permissible and what is not, and how do they go about remaining within those limits of permissibility. It may seem a little opaque in terms of the way I'm saying it, but if you look at the way regulations have evolved in India and have evolved globally also, we do have a lot of examples or illustrations to draw from extreme regulations, which are strict regulations, to soft regulations which give you some leeway but lay down very clearly what the ground rules are, and what you mentioned, which is self-regulation. We already have to some extent self-regulation, but I suspect that we will be moving forward a little bit more, but it may be fall somewhere between soft and strict regulation. You mentioned child sexual abuse material. So those will be the strict no-nos where you'll have strict liabilities, strict regulations and strict penalties.
Yes.
But there may be a lot of other nuancing in terms of what amounts to obscenity, and the rules as they apply today of community standards may become the basis for deciding the soft regulatory mechanism.
Okay, so regulation in the domain of content. I can see other guests also joining us now. Girish Wankade, coming to you now. This isn't the first time a petition of this nature has come before the Supreme Court, perhaps won't be the last. But the overall content on OTT platforms has seen a great degree of self-regulation. Do you think OTT platforms are also trying to understand and they are facing a lot of questions repeatedly, and that's coming from also those who consume this content? You and me.
Exactly. So in India, while we are just in a very nascent stage of the regulation and censorship, we have an access to almost the content which is coming from 190 countries. So when we get exposure to this content, every country has its own regulation, its own way of looking at censorship, and then we consume content from across the globe. At that time, it is definitely very important for us to play a landmark talking about what is to be censored. In this context, what we guys are doing is we are creating content which is good, but still there are certain uh, production houses, there are certain platforms which are actually doing derogatory content. There is content uh, uh, which is harmful for students, kids. So that has to be self-disciplined, self-regulated, and of course, censorship is not the answer. It is the responsibility of the filmmakers. It is the responsibility of the content creators, and of course, it is the responsibility of the OTT platforms how to accommodate this all context which is coming from across the globe. So while we in regional content are very much self-regulated, there are content which comes to us in the dubbed version. In that dubbed version, there is no censorship, and there is where we find the problem, where we find the gap. Anything which is derogatory in Indian context is suddenly taken in charge and by the regulatory bodies, or there are so much of moral policing also which happens here. But the content which is coming from international platforms, that is something we should be more concerned about.
Okay. Your thoughts on this, Vivian?
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to ask ourselves 2 or 3 questions as we ponder over this case. And this is cyclical in India. We've gone through this several times across different mediums. The first is, as Ms. Napinai said, she raised this point on permissibility. So let's dwell on that for a minute. Think about your own segment of media, which is television, although I'm connected to you via digital today. The TV code today, as it stands, says things like, you shall not make programs that offend good taste or decency. You should not contain anything in your program which is defamatory, deliberate, false, and suggestive innuendos and half-truths. If we just look at the news ecosystem on television today, can we attest to the fact that the state is actually governing this news ecosystem as per the existing television code? And if so, why are we every day offended by the news that we see? And why is there so much debate on mainstream news and the level of indecency that it has fallen to across countries, not just in ours? The level of polarization, the stark rhetoric, the debates that we have today, the screaming and shouting, it's innuendos galore. So the first question we should ask ourselves is, does the state have the capacity to look at OTT, social media, everything that is else that is being asked on this petition, to look at it with the right amount of nuance? And the obvious answer is no. You have a situation today where 22,000 films, 22,000 of various lengths are coming to the Central Board for Film Certification. We don't have, obviously, nearly enough people actually sitting and watching these movies and certifying them to be appropriate for our audiences. Are they bereft of obscene material, so-called obscene material, which again is a topic in itself, which lends itself to the second question, which is, what are the standards that we're talking about? Why are we considering something like obscenity when it goes further from what the framers of the constitutional scheme had in mind when we talked about freedom of speech? And the final point is, do we have the right starting point when we're asking this question of digital streaming platforms, social media platforms? We're lumping everything together the way the petition is worded today. And this was one of the reasons why the proposed broadcast bill wasn't taken forward last year.
It's
that
too generic
every medium
in
is being treated. Every medium cannot be treated the same.
Yes.
You can't be treating YouTube similar to television, similar to Netflix, similar to some social media feed. And let us be clear, if the children that you are seeking to protect are not necessarily getting their material on social media of a mainstream nature, what will happen when you over-regulate any mainstream platform today, which is offering you, by the way, the parental controls to try to stay away from bad content and is also perhaps taking some obligations on CSAM. Of course, everyone should do more, as Ms. Napanai said. Where will they go? Do you think that they will not be able to find problematic content online? We're living in an age where everyone has seen adolescence and seen the kinds of content that even any digital interaction lends itself to, or any communication lends itself to. How many areas will the state come and implead itself, as this petitioner has in this debate?
Okay, but the larger question is of unchecked content. Sanjana, before I bring in Karan, the larger question here is, Sanjana, that the content online has to be responsible as well. But that responsibility cannot be forced upon them. It has to come from within.
So here, there's no grey way to this. I look at this as a completely white picture where it's clean content, or I look at it as a completely black picture. We cannot make rules where we can, regularize that this is itna karenge to acha hai. You can stretch up to so much, and because every director has his own creativity, it's a crazy world of creativity out there when it comes to the producers and directors. They have their own vision, and they think that just by stopping a kiss in the film or romantic film in this film, they're just killing the entire essence of the film. So here it either has to be completely white or it has to be completely black. But where we are facing the main issue is don't allow it at all. If you think some websites are, I'm telling you, Google is full of so much of dirt. I'm so afraid myself. I'm a mother of a child. If you go on Google and if you put any of the superstars' name and you just use words with that, saying, romantic scene, or I'm sorry to say it on national television, but porn scenes or things like that, everybody's dirt just comes out with morphed photos. So why is, when it comes to this country, why aren't those websites permanently blocked? So there has to be just a straight 100% block on these dirty things which is happening on the internet. There's no Supreme Court rule which says, okay, like as soon as we report something, there is a cybercrime department, but it's a very long and tedious process where I go and report a dirty website which I don't want to by mistake also bump into. And any or every actor, any actor who's worked in one film or any actor who's worked in 100 films, we have to have the pain of tolerating ourselves on those websites. And there's no solution to it. Like, I have spoken to my friends who are cops and who are DIGs, who are IPS officers. I'm like, sir, ऐसे गंदे websites होते क्यों हैं इंडिया में, खुलते क्यों हैं इंडिया में? They're like, yes, we are working on it. It's a longer process. So in case we report a dirty website like that, instantly there should be a particular modem where it's permanently blocked.
Sanjana, while we look at websites, YouTube, OTT, these are different platforms. I think that's what the distinction is being
a website
put
like
forth.
Amazon.com.
Yes, put forth by Vivian.
Mariam, I look at every...
Yes, that's why I want to understand. Yes, so there has to be a distinction. A website is not an OTT.
At least. Yeah, fair enough, but it's an over-the-top platform on the internet. So somewhere I look at everything as a...
no, but can it be all brought under the same umbrella here, Karan?
No, I think...
I'm trying to address the biggest problem that we have right now.
Yes. Karan?
Rather than the smaller issues where there are parental controls.
These are not smaller issues. We are trying to make a distinction between various platforms here. Yes,
there are
Karan.
parental controls.
Go ahead, Karan.
Yeah, so I think if we can put the websites part in a different manner, because websites actually started much earlier as compared to OTT platforms, right? I think OTT platform, the browsing and people watching content online, started in 2017-18 after 4G prices kind of came off. Websites have been here since before that as well, right? Since before the app economy, we had the browser economy where the websites have been a part of it. So I think one can, kind of segregate that. Okay, leave that aside. The point I'm trying to make here is that there are 3-4 things I'd like to make here. So first thing is that India is a nation of diverse cultures, right? We have to respect religious sentiments. We have to respect, the various religions that people follow, and we really cannot go against them. Second, of course, obscene content in the form of, child pornography or, something which is, showing child, below 16 years, 17 in an inappropriate manner is obviously not going to be accepted, right? So I think 2-3 sensitive issues need to be taken care, which is why I think we need some kind of a middle ground. we can't have blanket censorship as well, because if you look at India as a market, I think the digital story is just taken off. Globally, if you look at everywhere across the world, other emerging nations, we do not have blanket censorship. OTT is all about, showing the content, showing the hard-hitting content, whether it is dark or, thrilling or, horror, something of that sort, which is not shown on the TV or the cinema medium, right? So I think we cannot have blanket censorship. We need to find some kind of a middle ground wherein there is self-regulation. One very important part to make here is that the creative ecosystem needs to take care of sensitive issues, as I pointed out, and there have to be hefty penalties here which can be imposed, for producers of the web series.
No, I don't think creativity should be bothered. There are bigger issues in the country which we need to focus on.
It's not a bother. No, I'm saying
I think creativity should not be tampered.
No, there has to be a line.
We'll be ruining
Otherwise,
the creativity of directors and producers.
I'm saying about specific sensitive issues. So out of one second. So out of 100 stories, maybe 10 stories could be shown in a wrong manner when the factual data is not stated in a correct manner, or there's some obscenity which is not accepted by the audience, right?
Manner, it is adult content. Let the adult watch it.
I don't agree with that, because eventually that is going to hamper the entire sensitivity, the culture
because
in
there's
India.
A parental control given.
No, that doesn't matter. I mean, that is there all throughout.
On Netflix, when my child is watching, I'm putting in the children segment on Netflix.
Then
on
I think the same thing, right? There's so much of content. So in that matter, you're trying to say that there has to be no censorship or there should be no self-regulation.
Which is restricted, so that has already been sorted.
No, I think there has to you have to draw a line beyond a certain point, right? I agree with the point that a lot of content is available on websites and other things put together. But these are very sensitive things. These are extremely sensitive things. Again, I'm not in favor of blanket censorship, as I'm saying, but there has to be middle ground, and the creators have to be penalized for showing factual things which are wrong in nature. Okay, they have to be also penalized for showing basically the children in a different manner, which can actually hamper the minds of today's youth today, right? So I think you have to draw a line in terms of what is the kind of content you show, and there's a middle ground over here. We can't move either way.
That is the responsibility of a parent. Now a director or a producer cannot sit and think like a politician that what I have to do for the youth. The director or the producer will think, how can I get a hit film? That is his biggest goal. How can I make my producers safe and how can I be successful? Now, he cannot think, how can I protect the mind of a youth or how can I protect the mind of a child? Because some content is made for some kind of audience and some content is made for not for some kind of an audience, So the director has to focus on a hit. You can't kill the creativity. There are bigger issues in the country that the Supreme Court needs to focus on.
No, but I think, as I said, for extreme sensitive, which is religious in nature, or which is, maybe something related to children in nature, in terms of, children being shown in an obscene manner, these things have to be restricted. Other things can be shown.
Children being shown in an obscene manner is absolutely not allowed anywhere in the world.
So there have to be certain norms which have been created, and these norms have to be followed, and if not followed, there has to be massive penalties, for the creative ecosystem.
But Karan,
we are talking about OTT film content, not about children being
the
seen in
point is the norms
manner.
have to be created from within.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat?
When you say norms have to be created, the norms have to be created by the directors, producers themselves?
No, it has to be created by the MIB. They have to actually have a protocol.
You are of the opinion that it has to be forced on them. You're forced.
Yes, it has to be, to a certain extent. And you know what? I'll tell you what, there could be a lot of debate on this in terms of what should be forced, what should not be forced. But there should be certain things which should just be let aside. That, okay, fine, these things cannot be shown. You can show anything apart from this. And I think you have to work for a middle ground. Eventually, creative ecosystem will not get hampered if you're not showing 3-4 types of things. So I think there's no problem in that.
Okay, Girish? Mr. Wankhede, if you heard me.
No.
Girish Wankhede, if you heard me.
Mariam, I would like to come in here.
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Okay, we'll try and fix that line. Sanjana, go ahead.
Topic. Like, when we are talking about this particular topic, we cannot put together romantic scenes. We cannot put together child misusage, or, I don't want to use harsher words, child misusage in films. Or we cannot, again, focus, and we again have to separate what is happening all over Google and internet. So we cannot club everything together. But let the directors be, let the producers be, they know what they are doing. Let people watch what they are watching. We are not forcing anybody going to their house that please you watch this today. There's always a choice of not to watch it because you don't like that kind of a content. But at the same time, I think Google and your entire websites, the dirty websites out there, really need a check in the country that yes, why is it even available or accessible so easily? Because when it comes to the other countries like Saudi Arabia and all, such websites don't even open. Even a WhatsApp call doesn't work there. They are so technologically forward because they want to stop the crime. So at the same time, pornography over the internet has to be completely banned. May it be OTT or may it be even your Google. Pornography has to be really, really curbed and cut off. That is the need of the hour because it may be Indian women, it may be traditional women, it may be actresses, models. Everybody's faces are cut off like that, and it's so dirtily misused. I feel horrified. Like if I have some new relative who's getting into the film industry, I'll be like, do you really want to get into films? I'm being an actress. Sometimes I ask them this question. So I feel ashamed that there's no curbing down of these dirty things which is happening, which is really extreme. But apart from that, the romantic scenes in the films and the creativity of a director or a producer showing a husband and wife in an intimate scene in a movie and all that should just let be. Because that is a different kind of a genre made for different kind of people that should definitely not be disturbed, is what I feel, Mariam.
Okay. Vivin, you want to weigh in on this?
Look, I mean, there are a lot of fragments going around this room, this panel. Some of it sounds appropriate to me, some of it doesn't. And I think that's precisely the point of confusion of this petition as well. The petition is lumping together all issues of morality, which, I mean, Sanjana ji seems to have her heart in the right place as a parent, but is doing the same. She's thinking about pornography as being somewhere the culprit which we have to look at,
Really
and somehow we have to
yes.
insulate the directors and producers from any kind of coercive state action to curb children from accessing pornography. But this is not the way the internet works. We have about 2-3 million hours of content being uploaded every day on something like a YouTube. You just imagine the number of websites that come and go. It's impossible to even stop at the scale at which frauds and scams are happening, which are real harms that so many of us are victims to, which move us in and out of the poverty line every day. We are unable to use state capacity to stop that. Do you really think we can stop pornography online? Do you think the Saudis are not watching porn, Sanjana ji? These are not issues that we have to conflate with a serious issue of the media regulation in this country. And media regulation in this country should start with oversight over news channels. Why was it that less than a week ago, notice had to be issued to news channels, regulated news channels, reminding them of their duties not to inflate and tell stories that may be harmful to the national interest in the context of the horrible incidents in Kashmir? That happened for a reason, that we seem to have swung from the norm of decency on the one medium that we can exercise and use as a check in public debate today. And that's, by the way, what the Europeans have done. They have made sure that public broadcasting, their news channels, they're exhibiting a modicum of truth, even though there may be no such thing as absolute truth when it comes to telling the news today. The other few things that I'll just like to mention before handing over to Napanai ji is that in response to what Karan said, who is going to be the custodian of our culture? How many cultures are we going to govern? Whose culture is going to preside over whose? Are you in tune with the culture of the youth today at every level? Do you know what their aspirations are and what they want to see and not want to see? Why should we even have the presumption of being able to morally police them, so to speak? Who will provide safe harbor for the investments that are being made in this country towards the directors and producers and the actors and the actresses, all of which is going towards job creation, which, by the way, is taking people away from being obsessed with scrolling on social media every day. When you talk about penalties, who is going to ensure those penalties are not levied on you and me when we start creating content one day, when maybe the government changes, when there is a different dispensation in charge? Who is going to stop a prosecutor from coming after you or me for doing something that they dislike because there is a penalty? Do we not have a surfeit of laws in this country which criminalize, which penalize, which are overbroad, which by the stroke of a pen, a bureaucrat or a tax official or a police official can come after any one of us for violating? Do we want more of that? Just because of this conflation of issues of pornography, of child access, of technology as a new medium, and so on and so forth? We need to get our head straight about what we are, where are we, what is the starting point? Are we talking about a more responsible media environment? Yes. No arguments there. Absolutely no arguments.
But then if you are saying
then you have to talk about what are you talking
you can
about.
show anything, whatever you want. If what the points that you are saying right now, if whatever you just now mentioned shows no responsibility towards culture, towards the sensitive issues which are there, you have to show these things.
Karan, were you part of the debate on what content regulation would be formed in the last iteration of the broadcast bill? I don't remember that you wrote or participated in those consultations. So when you talk about public consultation, when you talk about the involvement of the public in forming these standards, where is that involvement? Were you there in 1995 when the TV standards were evolved? Do you think that standards that were evolved in 1995 are still valid
there has
today?
To be,
and
you
if
have
they
to
are
protect
valid,
sensitive issues. Otherwise,
you
have to protect sensitive issues. You have to protect in a country where there are diverse cultures. You have to protect them. You can't just show things in a wrong manner. That is what I'm trying to say. And content is for entertainment,
who will argue with a truism like that, Karan?
I think there has to be norms. As I said, no. Then they're not saying that there has to be no censorship, nothing at all. You keep showing whatever you want to show. Everything is right. That's not the case. There has to be some stoppage. You have to draw a line somewhere. Obviously, the line has to be a limitation. You can't have a line wherein the creativity is hampered. The line has to come at
the government has full powers. Government has full powers to take down any content that it finds to be violating of national sovereign interest and public order, and it exercises that power.
But the point is, for that not to happen, for the controversy not to happen, the creative ecosystem should be aware, and there should be some norms within those limitations. The content has to be made. It's quite simple as that. It's nothing complicated, right? Nobody's stopping you to make creative content, not go creativity, right? Nobody's hampering creativity.
With the assumption that if you're living in the world today, you are at risk. There will be instances when you may even be harmed. The question is, how are we engendering resilience in our society? And what is the role of news media today to do that? Because that is the one arbiter of truth that we've had so far as a fig leaf to hold on to over the last 75 years. And if that gets eroded, then that's a problem. But unfortunately, the custodians of our culture are not looking at that. They're looking at everything other than that. And not looking at education in the schools, not looking at what parents should be doing.
I have
Every easy out is what we take.
I have just enough time to give the final word to the last word to NS Napinai. We have had a very good discussion between Vivian and Karan. We are leaving a lot of food for thought, but Ms. Napinai.
And Maria, just one last thing is Vivan.
How? Yes, Vivan.
Thank you, Vivan, for all those wonderful points.
And apologies for getting the name wrong.
Maria, let me try and sum up and try to address some of the issues that have been raised in all of half a second or so. I know that's a tall order, but very quickly, the first issue that I wanted to address was, I understand the angst with respect to online content and how it violates a woman's privacy and dignity, but this issue has already been addressed by the Supreme Court as far back as in 2017. You now have a case law which sets out a procedure for protecting your rights. It's now become part of the codified law also for protection, and the codified law mandates a takedown within 24 hours when it's content which violates your rights in terms of nudity or sexually explicit content, etc. So the issue here is not a lack of laws or the Supreme Court's intervention. There are certain problems with respect to implementation which the police will have to address. And there is one more very critical aspect to it. Please let me complete. One more critical aspect to it, which is that it is not just law that's playing a role in this. Technology has been adapted to ensure that once content like this is identified, it will be blocked not just from one platform but from future uploads also. I think that's a huge leap which has happened, and the Supreme Court facilitated this process. Now, to move on to the debate that Vivan and Karan had, actually the issue, that issue was also addressed by the Supreme Court time and again.
Yes.
When you're talking about regulation and you're talking about censorship, it is not expected to violate free speech and expression. It has to be limited within the mandates of Article 19.2. But there the difficulty is, if you have a law which merely reproduces Article 19.2 and says you will not violate ABCD including morality, by that itself you cannot restrain somebody's right of exercising free speech and expression.
All right.
I wanted to just raise one case law to point how
30
does
seconds.
this very quickly.
Yes.
Half a second. Yes. When the issue about restraining social media and continuous observation or surveillance of social media was addressed by the court, and also the issue of pornography, what the court said is you cannot have blanket bans when you're talking about free speech on the other side. What you do is you take specific content, you evaluate its legality.
Ma'am, we have
and
come to the end of this
closeness,
discussion and we
and
have
then
to really
take a
end
call.
this.
Yes.
Vivan, Karan, Sanjana, Girish and Snapin, I really appreciate your time on this edition of The Last Word. That's all from me.